What's up, everybody? I'm Ryan Thomas. Welcome to the Thomas Takes Sports Podcast. I am your host tonight, Friday night, a special edition of the Thomas Takes Sports Podcast. Yes, it is Friday. Yes, I don't have anything better to do than to talk Buffalo Bills football on a Friday night. I really don't feel like going out, don't feel like spending money on stupid stuff, because God knows I would. And I feel like talking about the Buffalo Bills, of course. So here I am on Spreaker, Spreaker.com, using the Spreaker.com app on my iPhone. Maybe I'll get some product advertising money from Apple. Probably not. But anyway, maybe from Spreaker, maybe not. Anyway, I kind of touched on, the last two podcast episodes. Talked about the Buffalo Bills and the season and how it's gone over the first 2 weeks, obviously 0-2. Now we have fired our offensive coordinator, Greg Roman. And, I had recently posted two different segments. In a Perfect World, the Buffalo Bills Part 1. In a Perfect World, the Buffalo Bills Part 2. Outlining my plan for what I would love to see happen for the future of the franchise. Obviously, what I would like to see as who I would like to see as their next general manager, who I would like to see as, possibly their next head coach. And I really want to delve into that. Obviously, I'm thinking worst case scenario here. You kind of have to, as a Buffalo Bills fan. They really have not shown up over the course of the last 16 years. Obviously, they haven't made the playoffs in 16 years. Their 16-year playoff drought can finally drive. They can get a learner's permit for their playoff drought, so to speak. So last time they made the playoffs, 1999, Doug Flutie had that amazing season. They went with Rob Johnson against the Tennessee Titans. They were winning the game by 1 point, 16-15. Kickoff happened. You know the rest. So that's the last memory of the playoffs. And obviously Bruce Smith was the starting defensive end in that game. And Bruce Smith's number was retired at last night's game. So that puts things into perspective of the amount of time that it's been since the Buffalo Bills made the playoffs, and it needs to change. One guy that I would really love to assume the head coaching position for the Buffalo Bills, if they were to decide to fire Rex Ryan, would be now Philadelphia Eagles offensive coordinator Frank Reich. Obviously, it's a name that most Bills fans should know. If you do not, you need to really reconsider if you really are a Bills fan. Frank Reich, the former backup quarterback for the Buffalo Bills for the better part of a decade, maybe even more. I think 10, 11 seasons he was Jim Kelly's backup. Led the greatest comeback of all time against the Houston Texans. So who better to call on than a guy that not only led the greatest NFL comeback of all time, he led the greatest college comeback of all time as a Maryland Terp as the backup to Boomer Esiason back in the day. So, who better to lead that comeback for the Buffalo Bills at the head coaching position than Frank Reich himself? Frank Reich has obviously, to say that he is ready to be a head coach, I'm not necessarily sure if he's fully ready to take that on, especially with all that is needed from the Buffalo Bills, what they need. They need a lot, obviously. But what he has done in his stops throughout his NFL career, and I really want to go through it, from start to finish. Obviously, he was drafted in the 4th round in 1985 by the Buffalo Bills, and that draft was most notably known for the draft that the Buffalo Bills picked first overall. And with that first overall pick, they picked Bruce Smith. He was actually picked in the 3rd round of the 1985 NFL draft. And a guy that, is a stand-up guy, stand-up individual, Christian guy, class act to, in every way, shape, or form. Really cares about this area, really wants to see this area do well. And obviously as a player, he played for Buffalo from 85 to 94, left Buffalo at the tail end of those Super Bowl runs, started for the Carolina Panthers in 1995, went to the Jets in 1996, and then he was with the Detroit Lions in 97 and 98. Started his coaching career in Indy with the Indianapolis Colts in 2008 as an offensive coaching staff assistant. Then went on to become the quarterback's coach from 2009 and 2010, the wide receivers coach, then the wide receivers coach in Arizona. He was the wide receivers coach, in 2011 for the Indianapolis Colts. Then he went to Arizona, was the wide receivers coach there. San Diego Chargers quarterbacks coach in 2013, San Diego Chargers offensive coordinator in 2014, and obviously the 2016 offensive coordinator for the Philadelphia Eagles. So, a guy that is, you really think about all those places. Indy, he was working with Peyton Manning as a quarterback's coach, as a member of the Bill Polian era at the general manager position. Bill Polian was the guy that drafted him. Bill Polian's also the guy that I feel is the only man that should be in charge of football operations of this franchise. And obviously, 2011, he went on to coach the wide receivers. Went on to coach the wide receivers in 2012 with the Cardinals. Larry Fitzgerald comes to mind. San Diego Chargers quarterbacks coach Phillip Rivers, offensive coordinator Phillip Rivers, Danny Woodhead, a guy that he really helped revolutionize his game. Stevie Johnson was brought over from the Buffalo Bills as well, so there's kind of a Buffalo connection there from his days in San Diego. And now we bring him currently to the Philadelphia Eagles. He's the offensive coordinator in Philly. And Carson Wentz put up a huge performance, albeit it was against the Cleveland Browns, but for a rookie to compete at that high of a level right away, that says a lot about the coaching that he has given. And recently, Frank Reich compared Carson Wentz to Andrew Luck and Jim Kelly, which is very high praise. Quarterback, that is probably one of the best prospects of the last 15 years, especially at the quarterback position. Probably the best quarterback prospect since Peyton Manning in Andrew Luck. And Jim Kelly, arguably one of the greatest quarterbacks of his era, no doubt about it. In the conversation as one of the best quarterbacks of the greatest era, with John Elway and Dan Marino, and those three really ruled the roost of the AFC for quite some time. They were battling each other year in and year out, and Kelly was on the winning end of the majority of those AFC battles, competing in 4 Super Bowls in a row, representing the AFC, winning 4 AFC championships. So that says a lot, as far as what he believes in for Carson Wentz. He finds him to be a high-character guy. And if Carson Wentz has a good rookie season, which I think he will, I think there's a very solid chance that he will have a good rookie season. I anticipate that Frank Reich would be a hot head coaching candidate, and I would anticipate the Buffalo Bills having serious interest, being that Terry Pegula's been, before he was the owner of the team, he was a longtime season ticket holder. He knows the roots of this team. He knows the roots of the franchise. And whether he was a backup quarterback or not, Frank Reich was a part of those teams, a huge part of those 4 Super Bowl teams. And obviously, I really feel, not just, as a biased statement, but Jim Kelly and Frank Reich are probably the greatest starter-backup tandem probably in NFL history, if you really think about it. Jim Kelly was known from time to time to have injuries, to have concussions, to have leg, knee, throwing shoulder issues, and Frank Reich would come in and their offense that was a no-huddle offense didn't necessarily miss a beat with Frank Reich in there. And obviously, in that playoff game against the Houston Oilers, he was able to lead the greatest comeback of all time. And really, you look at the situation that the Bills are in now. They've been selling false hope for a long time, and this would be sort of a corny move. But at the same time, it's not like it doesn't lack credibility. Frank Reich has had a decent run as an offensive coordinator / quarterbacks coach, and that's the most important position in the game. It's a position that the Buffalo Bills have failed to really find that fit for the last 16 years since, throughout this whole playoff drought, since the Jim Kelly, Frank Reich era. So if anybody knows quarterbacks, it would be Frank Reich. If anybody knows how to play quarterback in Buffalo, it would be Frank Reich. So would that make sense? I think it would. I definitely think that will become an option. I thought it was an option when Doug Marrone decided to resign. I thought Frank Reich was a coaching candidate for the Buffalo Bills position, but that didn't happen. I think it should now. I think he's improved as an offensive coordinator over the course of his head coaching career, and I think Carson Wentz's success will prove that, and that will prove that he is of head coaching capability, and he would be a good fit on the Buffalo Bills. He knows how to use the running backs. He knows how to use wide receivers, being that he was a wide receivers coach with the Arizona Cardinals, and he was a full offensive coordinator 2 times with the San Diego Chargers and the Philadelphia Eagles. How about the fact that he was a quarterback's coach in Indy, working with Peyton Manning, arguably the greatest quarterback of all time? So Frank Reich knows a thing or two about quarterbacks, and that's the root of why I think he would make great sense for the Buffalo Bills. I feel like right now they do not have that answer at the franchise quarterback position. At the quarterback position, they do not have a franchise quarterback. They just don't. Tyrod was the silver lining quarterback last night, throwing big home run bomb plays, but besides that, he didn't really do a whole lot. At halftime, I posted a status on Facebook, 129 yards, 84 of those 129 were on one pass, albeit it was a touchdown, but besides that one pass, he had 45 yards and a half. That doesn't win any games for anybody, let alone a team that has several holes, that has several injuries across the board on their roster. So, Frank Reich would be a very interesting fit for the Buffalo Bills, and I don't think it is out of the realm of possibility that could happen. I've heard through several people that Frank Reich still lives in the area, so he knows this area. To say One Buffalo now and have it resonate with the fan base like it has, it really has. But to preach that message with Frank Reich as your head coach of your football team, that would be pretty awesome. It'd be pretty cool. So, if I were to pick one guy to replace Rex Ryan as the head coach of the Buffalo Bills, it would be Frank Reich. I like that idea. It's an idea that's really grown on me, and it's an idea that I'm really going to hammer home, throughout the season. If this does turn into an ugly season, which it already has, but I mean ugly in the terms of Rex Ryan being canned by Terry Pegula, then, would it be out of the realm of possibility that they get Frank Reich as their head coach? Maybe. Frank Reich could bring Jim Schwartz back, being that Jim Schwartz is the defensive coordinator for the Philadelphia Eagles. If Philly has success, maybe they could somehow bring back Jim Schwartz, because Schwartz really fit this town. Highly doubt that'll happen, especially given the way that he was canned, and that wasn't really the best decision, obviously. In hindsight, that was not the best decision. So that's my take on, in a perfect world, who the next head coach of the Buffalo Bills should be. Who it should be, I feel like it should be Frank Reich. Frank Reich makes a lot of sense to me. San Diego's offense, Melvin Gordon had a bad time, last year for his rookie year. It was not a productive season, but their offensive line was in shambles, and Phillip Rivers performed at a high level. I'd like to think that had something to do with his coaches, and Frank Reich was the offensive coordinator. Carson Wentz, if he has an immediate impact rookie season, Frank Reich's name should be considered, not just among the Buffalo Bills, but among the other NFL teams that will be looking for a real head coach. Take care, guys. That was the Thomas Take. I'm Ryan Thomas. Thanks for listening.